Hello and welcome to Agrestal Vestige, where we are vested in all things Agrestal. My name is Tom, here with you again this week with yet another blended Scotch Whisky review. This time we are reviewing Old Smuggler blended Scotch Whisky, bottled at 40%. What do you know? 40%. Let's pour a little bit of this. Old Smuggler, the name, has been around a long time. And it's real common in a lot of countries. Believe it or not, more specifically Argentina, of all places. Where Argentina has it's the second most popular whiskey sold there this past year, and it was number one for a long time. And Eastern Europe is popular there. It's popular in the United States. So let's have a look at this. No doubt this caramel coloring, E150, been added to that. No doubt that it's been heavily chill filtered. It's a very bottom shelf blended Scotch whiskey. Some people love it, some people hate it, and others have never tried it. And those who have never tried it, anyway, you can get this fairly reasonably at about 15 to 18, 19 pounds, dollars, euros, depending on where you're at. So it doesn't hurt the budget that much. Anyway, smell it. The first thing you get on the smell is actually charcoal, like a barbecued charcoal. You get a bit of grain with it. There's an underlying phenolic character, but not like a peated phenolic at all. It's just a medicinal type phenol. Yeah, there's not a lot going on the nose. I mean, the main thing you get is charcoal. And yeast. You get a little yeast, charcoal and yeast, and grain. I'm not smelling any of the typical vanillas. I'm not smelling any of the typical honey. Anyway, let's try the palate. Very corn rich. So the grain alcohol in this is obviously fairly high, because you do get that corn whiskey type flavor. It comes out. You do get a hint of apricots. You get very little spice, a hint maybe. You get sweet and sour notes. But that charcoal, I can't get over the charcoal. I mean, it's extremely dominant here. If you like barbecue charcoal, this is a whiskey for you. It's very, like I said, corn rich, grain rich. porcine, moonshine type. I mean, it's not like a neutral spirity type flavor like a vodka, like it's like a corn whiskey almost, with a touch of passing notes. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add water to see if we can release anything that's built up and the little flavor molecules there. I'm going to add 2 milliliters. I'm going to swirl that around. And while that's sitting for a bit, I will say that Old Smuggler, I said it's an older type company, distillery. Back in I think it was 1644, the Scottish Parliament introduced a fairly notorious excise on whiskey, and the government's eventually was forced to reduce all of that in the early 1800s, which is why you will see a lot of distilleries saying that they were, established in usually the 1800s. Many of them, many were going before that, but they were doing it illegally. And whilst they were doing it illegally from 1644 until the early 1820s, there was a lot of smuggling going on. And that's where this Scotch got its name, to pay homage to all the old smugglers who used to smuggle the whiskey to them, to whoever wanted it at the time. So okay, after it's set with water, what do we have here? The charcoal is even more intense, actually. You get like a if you've ever changed the oil in your car or been around oil, it's like a motor oil type aroma on the nose. Like if you open a can of motor oil and took a bit sniff of it, you do get that charcoal, motor oil. You do get the sweet and sour, and it is a fairly viscous mouthfeel. It's not thin. The finish is somewhat medium. It's not abrupt. It's not short. But the finish is it's mildly spicy. It's oaky. It's slightly sweet. It's medium. It kind of lingers there for a bit. You don't get the motor oil and the charcoal on the finish as much as you do on the nose and on the initial arrival. I'm just going to add just like 1 milliliter more of water to this. But in a lot of bottom shelf blended Scotch whiskies that's heavily chill filtered, has tons of the E150A caramel colorant added, all the goodness, or most of the goodness, has been stripped away from the Scotch in the beginning. So you're left with a lot of strange notes that are not harmonious to one another. As far as cask maturation in this, I would say that it was second fill, third fill bourbon cask. I don't see any sherry influence in this myself. Yep, you still got the charcoal. You still got the burnt motor oil. You still got that corn whiskey type note to it. Now, after adding 3 milliliters of water, you're starting to get like a mild biscuity type sugar cookie note. And like a faint aroma of cereal. Yeah, and after the 3rd milliliter of water, the spice element has decreased to almost nothing. The grain element has increased. That sweet corn type flavor, trucker's favorite, something like that. Well, not really. It's more of it's a sweeter corn than that. Silver Queen comes to mind. Silver Queen, that genus of corn, is what this reminds me of. It is what it is. If you want to blend this with something, it would be a good blending scotch. If you want to mix this with, I'm not that sort of person, I love to taste the product rather than mix a bunch of stuff together and come up with a concoction or a decoction or even a tincture with this. And I have made tinctures with alcohol before. But sipping neat, this is somewhat of a harsh experience for me personally. I'm not really into the motor oil or the charcoal. Love smoke, love peat, love even a good corn whiskey if it's distilled correctly and matured correctly. It can be quite lovely. But the notes that this has in it, the flavor profile, all seem to be fighting against each other. It's an antithesis amongst flavors. That's my opinion. As far as a rating out of 100, I would give this about a 78. I would. It's very popular, and if you like that profile, this is the scotch for you. It's just like some of the scotches I like. Other people absolutely hate them. They're turned off by the profile. They don't like those, the medicinal notes. I like a real heavily medicinal type scotch. It's my pinnacle. But everybody's completely different. I know some people who like a real light floral scotch. I know people who like the heavily peated scotches. I'm one of those. I tend to enjoy those. I love a sherry bomb type scotch, like Glenfarclas or Glendronach or things like that. But as far as blended Scotch whiskies, this definitely has a unique unto itself flavor that none of the others I've ever tried has. And if you like this is a scotch for you, and you'll probably love it. But for me, 78 out of 100 is a good score.